I'm often asked, where are all the people coming from that are moving to the St. George, Utah area? In this video, we're going to talk about why a lot of people are coming here from Florida or picking St. George, Utah over Florida. Hi, I'm Shari Harris with Fathom Realty, and I spend a lot of my time helping people relocate to the St. George, Utah area. And I would love to help you, so don't hesitate to reach out. All my contact information is below. So a lot of people are wondering, why are people deciding to move to St. George, Utah and not Florida? They've been planning on maybe retiring or moving there for the warmer weather, and then they decide to move here, or they moved there and they've changed their mind and they are coming here to St. George, Utah. I would say the number one thing that I hear when somebody calls me is the homeowners insurance is so high there, and they can't afford it. They can't afford to stay there with the homeowners insurance going up. It also means if they have an HOA that's covering insurance for the area, that has pushed that up, their monthly fees. And so then it's not affordable. So they're coming here, as well as some people are tired of rebuilding after the hurricanes. I have a client right now, he's got his home listed in Florida to move here, and it's hurricane season, and he's a little nervous. He's like, please help me sell this house before it gets destroyed again. So that's a real hard thing. I can imagine. I've never actually lived in Florida, and so I imagine that's just such a struggle. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other differences as well. So one thing to point out, St. George, Utah is not like all of Utah. So the northern, most of the state actually, they're going to have snow and more of the four seasons, whereas we are a much warmer climate, hot climate, and so we don't really get snow here. And so we might get a sprinkling during the winter, here and there, 2 or 3 times. You sleep in, it'll probably melt before you see it, because the sun touches it and it's gone. And so some people who were looking at Florida because they wanted that warmer weather, they didn't want to deal with snow, they're trying to get away from the snow, are now like, oh, well, we could come to St. George, Utah and get away from the snow. And so they're liking that. So Florida doesn't get as hot as we get here. Like, I'll be honest, in July, we see a lot of days triple digits. You know, you'll have a whole week where every day the high is above 110, and then, you know, in the evenings it drops down into the high 80s sometimes when we're really stuck in that hot space. And so that's hot, but it's not the humidity that you have in Florida. I've had people tell me that we may have a much higher temperature here, but we are a desert, and so it's a dry heat, and so it doesn't feel nearly as hot. And so they're a little nervous, you know. They've come out here to look at homes, and they're like, it's supposed to be 110, and they're like, oh, well, it's hot, but it's not that humidity, I can't breathe when I go outside type of thing. So so they've actually really liked that. Though you have to be aware, if you are coming from a high humidity area, this dry heat, it kind of dries your skin. So lotion, chapstick, it's not uncommon sometimes to get kind of bloody noses, as the air's so dry, and so needing to moisturize even your nose and stuff. So that's sometimes, not everybody, you know, but that's kind of a thing that can be a little shocking if you're coming from somewhere with high humidity. Your hair is going to be different. Some people love it, some hate it. I know I have curl if I'm in the humidity, and a much straighter hair when it comes to being here. I'll have people call me from Florida, and they'll be like, we are looking at all these homes online and nothing has like a screened in porch. Why don't you have screened in porches? And I would say that that's because we don't have the mosquitoes and the flies and the bugs they were kind of telling me about there in Florida. And so we can actually just go sit out on our porch and enjoy it and not be totally bugged by all the insects. So I think that's why we don't have hardly any of those. I will say if you're going to more of northern Utah, there's mosquitoes and stuff. When I go up to like Bryan Head area, definitely have to have my bug spray. So this isn't an all Utah thing, but typically we have no problem with our barbecues and different things sitting outside without having that screened in enclosure. They were even talking about how they have to kind of like enclose their swimming pool area, or there would be so many, it would have so many insects right there. So most of our pools are not enclosed. That's super rare here, so they'll just be out there. Also heard that sometimes in Florida you've got your pool enclosed so the alligators don't get in them. That sounds so scary to me. We don't have alligators. That's one of the differences. And like I was talking about the hurricanes being a big thing in a large portion of Florida, and people say, well, what's your natural disaster? Because everyone's got to have them, right? So I would say like we have, so I grew up with earthquake drills, but we've never like had major earthquakes that are super damaging. I actually sometimes, you can look at the charts that show earthquakes and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that we'd had any, because you just don't feel them. I know there was one, I probably talked about in another video, 1992-ish, caused a bit of a mudslide, damaged a few homes, but so not to say that an earthquake will never happen, but we don't have them all the time. It's not like the hurricanes that you've got your hurricane season every year. So we don't, we've seen some kind of mudslides, cliff slides, not tons of those either. As far as flooding, I know like flood insurance all over, you have to have there in Florida. Very few people have flood insurance here. I'll have people who are coming from Florida and they'll have me bring up the FEMA flood map just to see if the homes they're looking at have any potential of flooding, because they want to be as far away from that as possible. And rarely do I find a home that's actually in that flood map. We have a river that runs through here. People will laugh that I call it a river because sometimes it's pretty well a rocky bed of nothing, but it can fill up with a lot of water. We had some of our like biggest winters lately, meaning so much snow in the mountains. So as that was coming down, there was concern because we can have flash flooding in this area. Between you've got heavy rain at times. We don't get lots of rain, but when we get it, it usually comes all at once. Or the snow melt runoff coming down through the river. And so they've kind of re-engineered the river too, to help, because it has flooded and done some destruction in the past. So a lot of the changes have helped. I know the last couple springs, I remember seeing like what do you call them, backhoes or whatever at different points in the river where they were like worried that maybe debris in the river could get caught on like a bridge or something and back up the water and cause flooding. So they were very prepared and stuff. So and you will see like when you're out walking, sometimes a trail will like dip down and there'll be a sign that says warning flash flood zone or something. Which I used to laugh at because I was like, oh, it's so dry here. But did see after some of our heavy rainstorms that those part of the trails could be full of debris and occasionally could wash out the trail a bit. They're really good to get those fixed and repaired quickly. But it is something in just the southern Utah area to be aware of if you're up hiking in the mountains and stuff. That flash flooding can happen, and so to be careful and look into that if you're out in the outdoors a lot during especially our monsoon season. So that's kind of our, I don't know, hailstorms occasionally might do a little damage. I see a lot more of that in northern Utah than here. We don't really typically get hail, but I have seen it occasionally. So yeah, it's not, I don't feel like we have these big dangers where I'm worried that my home is going to be taken out. So I will say one thing. Okay, Florida has beautiful beaches. So that is something we are a desert. We don't have the beach here. If you drive to California, I can't even remember now, 5-6 hours, you could be to a beach there. I know the beaches in California are different from Florida. I actually have not been to Florida yet. I would like to vacation there, which brings me to the other thing about Florida is I've had people tell me they're like, there's so many tourists here and they're everywhere. They're filling up our beaches, and we want to get away from that. I will tell you, we are actually a pretty big tourist town ourselves here. I mean, I know that we don't bring in the numbers. We don't have Disney World and stuff that you see in Florida, but our population can grow dramatically on a weekend where we have a big event happening. The traffic will increase. There'll be maybe detours if it's a triathlon marathon race, longer waits at the restaurants. So there are, you know, or even like I go hiking in Snow Canyon State Park and there's nowhere to park by the trail I wanted to go on, or I just see more people on the trail. And so we can get full at times with just a lot of people here for different things. We also host a lot of dance competitions and like baseball tournaments, softball tournaments. So that brings a lot of families to the area that are like here with their children for those things. And so we have a lot of, you know, our hotels will be full. Airbnbs, which we have a lot of like vacation rental zones, those will fill up. And so if you live near one of those, you might see even a greater impact of people at your grocery store and your restaurants right there. So, so we do see that. So if you're like totally trying to get away from all the tourists, this might not be the place because we do bring that in. We're also near Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon, and so people will come and stay here to explore some of the surrounding nature. And so we may not have the ocean, but we have the most beautiful red rocks and mesas and mountains and the cliffs, and it's just a breathtaking area. And so we have a different kind of beauty, and we have palm trees. So I love looking out my window at the palm trees and the red rocks and the snowy mountains way in the distance is how I like it. So I was kind of just looking at kind of rankings to see how we compare to Florida as a state in some areas. And I was looking at the US News and World Report, and it was showing that, like, for example, looking at crime, Florida was ranked number 13 and Utah number 9. The economy, Florida was ranked number 1, and this is out of all the states. Utah economy was rated number 3. For education, Florida number 1, Utah number 2. Looking at healthcare, Florida's number 26 and Utah number 14. So they were really actually pretty close in a lot of categories. If you did overall rankings, Utah did come in number 1 and Florida number 9. So I will tell you, people often ask me about healthcare. We do have a great hospital here, one of the best in Utah, which is great for our population and stuff. We have a very good hospital here. Great campus there, has a cancer center. And, you know, I have found, like, people ask me, what about wait times? You know, I haven't felt that. I mean, we have not had horrible tragedies in our family. So, I haven't had long wait times for things. Really, I know when it's a medical thing, it can feel like every day feels like an eternity. And so sometimes when I'm like, oh, I had to wait 2 weeks for an MRI or something, they're like, oh, that's nothing compared to where they're at. So I think it's all relative to where you live, what you're used to. I feel like kind of in the specialty in pediatrics that maybe we don't have it all here, but maybe that would be common in a lot of areas. We needed a specialist for one of my daughters for something, and was told if it got worse, the best doctor for it, we'd have to go to northern Utah, Salt Lake area. So like 5 hours to Salt Lake. that they have a lot more. They have Primary Children's Hospital and other things there. So, and I know with the cancer treatments, I've known a few people who actually end up going to Salt Lake for some of their treatments and staying there. So, but I know tons of people who are treated right here, and we have a dialysis center, and so pretty well, everything you would need is here. We also are just a couple hours from Las Vegas. Typically not medical care people having to go there, but for some of the bigger stores, we find people go there sometimes. And I wanted to touch on safety as well. I know it's all relative depending on where you're coming from, what you're used to, but I do have a lot of clients that I show around who always comment on how safe and clean everything looks, how the parks look so nice, and even that we stop at a gas station and they run in and use the bathroom and they comment on how clean and nice the bathroom was, and so different from where they're visiting from. And so something I take for granted at times, but we definitely have a very safe, nice feel. I've never felt scared or like I was in danger. If you watch the news, you'll see we get some pretty big drug bust on I-15. It's a great big interstate that runs from in California all the way up through Montana by the Canada border. And so you will see that there's drug trafficking along this big interstate. And I'm real impressed. I don't know how they know which cars, but they are stopping cars and taking a lot of drugs, a lot. So, and I'm sure some of those drugs do trickle into communities along the interstate and stuff, but it's not something that's touched my life or that I've really seen a lot of. And I think our police just do an awesome job. Somebody was here looking at homes from another state recently, and they were like, "Oh, your police actually arrest people who steal things." Where I live, they just let people go. And so she actually cheers seeing any arrest in the area because it shows that our police force is at work doing their job. One thing we kind of have in common with Florida is the retirement second home thing. We do have a lot of homes here that are second homes that people come here during the winter to escape the snow, and then they leave during our hot summer months. And so we do have a lot of second homes and retirement communities, 55 and plus, the golf courses, and kind of the amenities for seniors to have a very active lifestyle. All right, I guess that's all I have today about, Florida versus St. George. If you've lived in both areas, I would love to hear what your take is, what the differences are that you've seen. And I will talk to you soon.